The Marape Basil Government has announced openly and continues to emphasize the need for public sector reforms. It is not the first time a government has announced that, but this government believes it will get the job done.
We want to reform public service to a right-sized and efficient, effective public servant. I know it's been talked about much in the past, but just because in the past it hasn't been achieved doesn't mean we will be complacent about it going into the future.
What is public sector reforms? Public sector reforms consist of deliberate changes to the structures and processes of public sector organizations with the objective of getting them to run better. In 2003, a study by Dr. Lawrence Sauce, the Deputy Executive Dean of School of Business and Public Administration at UPNG, reveals that PNG has said so much and done little. Dr. Lawrence had pointed out that in close to 10 years of sporadic reforms, provincial bureaucracies have been the ones that have been most neglected. There has been a lack of concrete action to initiate much needed reform in some 20 provincial departments by the central agencies. 17 years later, this is still a concern, as alluded by Prime Minister James Marape.
Something we want to achieve is a right-sized public servant, serving better, serving well, and a lot more public servant in our rural and our provincial areas than a heavy-headed public service in Waigani, consistent with some of the reforms that we've started, including abolishing the Office of Chief Secretary and having a flatter structure based in Waigani, but transferring all public servants to our service areas, that is the provinces and districts.
In September this year, the government highlighted concerns of the funding allocations to the public service sector annually, with no visible results to show, therefore tasked the Special Parliamentary Committee on Public Sector Reform and Service Delivery to look into the performance of the public sector. The Marape Basil Government's appointment of Joe Sungi this month as the new minister responsible for public service is to work closely with Gary Jufa, who is the chairman of the Parliamentary Committee on Public Sector Reforms and Service Delivery, to ensure the much talked about reforms take place. Jufa earlier this year said the government is concerned that this sector consumes 1/3 of the annual national budget, but their performance over the years have been poor.
And there is phenomenal work that will be undertaken by the Public Sector Reform Commission under the stewardship of the Prime Minister and the NEC and Parliament indeed, where we will be reforming the public sector space, looking at the public service, the state-owned enterprises, and the disciplinary forces and national security apparatus.
The Asian Development Bank's Country Partnership Strategy 2016 to 2020 points out that strengthening public sector management or PSM systems and practices in PNG will improve the government's ability effectively and efficiently utilize public finances for service delivery and infrastructure provision. It says strengthened public service management is also needed to ensure that revenue from the LNG exports and other mining and petroleum projects efficiently and equitably utilized. The Marape Basil government are confident they will be the government that makes these changes in the public sector.